All right, next up, we're going to add some data to our app. So we'll create a collection and secure the collection and then publish and subscribe to the data. So to get us started here, let's find out what packages we have installed already, and we're going to remove the ones that auto-publish and make our app insecure. So I'll say iron list, and that will go ahead and list all the packages that we have. Notice in there that we have two packages, one called auto-publish and another called insecure. And we're going to remove both of those packages. So auto-publish automatically publishes out all the data in our MongoDB, and we don't want that. We want to control what gets published. And the insecure package doesn't have any security around our collections, and so we want to specifically control what operations are allowed for each collection and deny everything by default. Okay, now if we look at what packages we have, we should be all set. So let's go over to the app now, and the first thing I'm going to do is to add a collection. Now we can do that by hand, but an easier way to do it is to use the iron scaffolding tool. So we're going to use the generate command, and before we generate a collection, let me show you around the different types of generators. So type IronG or iron generator, IronG for short. And let me expand this and give you a quick tour. Notice there's a number of different generators that we can use. The first one there is a collection, but we can generate any type of resource for our app, including controllers, a publish function, routes, scaffolding, style sheets, and templates. And what this will do is create the files and boilerplate code that we would tend to write over and over again. So the way that we can use generators is to say IronG and then the type of generator, and then typically the name of the resource that we're trying to create along with whatever options are available for that particular generator. So what we're going to do now is to create a collection using the collection generator. So I'll say IronG collection, and we're going to call this collection to-dos. Now if I resize this to make it a little bit more practical and refresh the tree here, notice that there's a new file called todos.js, and if I open it up, it has all the boilerplate code that we would write ourselves. So here's the definition of the to-dos collection, and notice it's in the lib directory, so it'll exist on the client and on the server. And if we're in on the server, that's where we'll define our security rules for the collection, what we'll allow for both for insert, update, and remove. Now we're just going to use the allow rules for now to make things simple, and what this will do is to say, if this function returns true, then an insert is allowed, and likewise for update and remove. Now our security rules are going to be pretty simple. What we're going to do is to say that you're allowed to insert if the user ID is the same as the one on the doc. And the same is going to be true for update, and the same is going to be true for remove. So as long as you're the user of the to-do, you should be allowed to update or remove it, and we'll make sure that we can insert to-dos for other users with this line here. Now what I'd like to do next is in the browser in the console to verify that the collection actually exists. So I should be able to say to-dos, and that should be an instance of a Mongo collection, and it's available on the client and on the server. Now there currently aren't any to-dos, so if I say to-dos find and then fetch to get an array, it should just be an empty array because we haven't actually created any to-dos yet. So let's go ahead and create a new to-do, and I'm going to say to-dos insert, and let's give it a couple of attributes. The first will be the user ID, so we'll give it a user ID of the currently logged in user, so we can call the user ID function of Meteor. I'm going to give it a created at timestamp, so we know when the to-do was created. We'll say that it's not done, and we'll give it a subject of first to-do. And what gets returned is an ID for that to-do, and Meteor has automatically uses its RPC mechanism to send this up to the server and insert the document into Mongo. Now to verify that that happened, you can go into the Network tab and then click on WebSockets and then the WebSocket link. And then click on the Frames tab, and we should in here find the Meteor method call that was just used to create this new record. And here's that message right here, the DDP message. So the problem now, though, is that we haven't subscribed to or published to any data. And so if I were to run this query again, we still don't have any items in the to-dos collection. So we can say find and then fetch, and it's still empty. So what we need to do next is to publish this data to the client and then subscribe to it in our route. I can use a generator to create the publish function, just like we did for a collection. So down in the bottom console on the left, I'll say iron generate publish, and we're going to call this publish function to-dos. And if I look up top, what this did was add a publish function to the publish.js file called to-dos. And inside of it, by default, it will just return all of the to-dos. It'll return a cursor for all the to-dos in the collection. We don't quite want that. What we want to do is to get a cursor for the to-dos for the particular user. So in this case, it'll be where the user ID is equal to the currently logged in user. And we can get that by saying this.userid. Now we could also sort these off the wire if we wanted to, but we'll go ahead and sort them in the client in our user interface. So we'll just leave that alone for now. Okay, the next thing we need to do is to subscribe to this publish function. And there's two places we can do that. In our client folder, we could have an application JavaScript file and just create a global subscription or a global subscription to this publish function. But more often than not, you'll probably want to segment your application by data or by route so that you don't run out of memory in the browser. So what you can do is subscribe to this publish function inside of your controller. So we'll go to the home controller in our lib directory, and inside of the subscriptions function, you can say this.subscribe, and then just name the to-dos, name the publish function that you want to subscribe to. Now notice we don't have to pass up the user ID here. That gets set automatically on the server side. We should be able to go into the browser console and do a find fetch on the collection and see the one to-do that we created a few minutes earlier. Now, if you're having trouble with this, I like to separate the user interface from the data, so you can always do the debugging by just opening up the console and checking whether you have the data that you expect to have. And you can also go to the network tab and make sure that the messages from the publish function are getting sent down. Notice the message down here at the bottom where that particular to-do is being sent down with an added message to the collection to-dos.